Well, and since what we're talking about is how to make sure that your salespeople don't get trapped, and you want to make sure that they don't get in that situation, there are 6 ways that you must teach your salespeople how to handle the trap that is being laid for them.
Okay, now.
So before we get to those 6, set this up for us.
All right. What there are, they're not really, there are 6 ways, but they are reactive to 6 specific situations.
Oh, I see.
In other words, there are 6 types of critical situations, and then you have to know how to deal with it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's take a look at the first situation.
All right.
Okay?
Bad-mouthing competition to gain advantage.
Yeah, bad mouthing. What they'll do is that they'll ask you to say something about your competition. Tell me, how do you compare against so-and-so?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, all of a sudden, no matter what you say or do, it could come across as bad-mouthing. And the worst thing that you want to do is to bad-mouth the competition. Now, this is fundamental and simple, but it's more simple than it is easy. So here's an interesting way to handle it. You may want to say, well, let me ask you this. How much do you know about our competition? What have you seen about them that's particularly appealed to you?
Answering a question with a question.
Yes. See, so now what happens is I'm asking them how much do they know and what do they like about the competition. Here's a great way to say it. Well, based on what you've seen, if you could change anything about them, what would it be?
Which, of course, gives you an opening through which you can drive a truck with
because
regard
now
to
what
your sales
happens
pitch.
Is
Right.
if you can differentiate, you differentiate it around the way that they want to change the situation and what they're looking for to improve upon. So you're not bad-mouthing them.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving their information back and you're positioning what you have in the proper way.
And you know, it seems to me that what you're saying too, with regard to trapping, that there are really 2 psychological dynamics. One is they're testing you, the salesperson. They're testing your expertise, your ability to do what you do. But the other thing too is they're expressing, in a sense, their nervousness, are they not, about wanting to make the sale, as you said earlier. Now, another situation that comes up with regard to trapping is the competition bad-mouthing you to gain an advantage. Now, how do you deal with that?
That's an interesting one. Part of the thing is, as we often teach, we say, look, there are 4 key players inside of the account. One of them is your internal advocate. The internal advocate is the person who perhaps can influence the decision or is part of the decision. In some cases, you're lucky if they're the check writer because they can make the decision. But the real truth of the issue is that you need some inside information to find out if you're being bad-mouthed. Because you don't want to assume that you're being bad-mouthed if you're not being bad-mouthed. Okay? Now, for example, I got some information the other day from one of my internal advocates with an account that she called me and said, this is what you have to be able to overcome because they have a concern about this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that that was planted by a competitor. Now, I'm not going to call the competitor and say, don't you badmouth me, because you know what? They're only going to badmouth me more. But I knew I was being badmouthed. So the secret is, you need to know if you're being badmouthed. Okay?
But
that's
Bill,
the first step.
Okay. Well, the question is going through my mind, and I've seen this happen, is what if you're sitting there having a conversation with a prospect, the prospect says, well, you know, I'm interested in working with you, but I have heard that you guys are awfully expensive.
Okay.
And in fact, one of your competitors told us that you are twice as expensive as he is, which is you are finding out on the spot that you're being bad-mouthed by your competition. Now, what do you do with a situation like that?
All right, good observation and a good suggestion, Rick. Let me give you an example. Some of you who are watching may have seen the book I did with Dr. Larry Steinmetz, How to Sell at Margins Higher Than Your Competitors. This is another whole skill set that goes outside of this, and now the salesperson has to say, okay, I'm being bad-mouthed by the competition. The first thing I'm not going to do is to take them head on and disagree with them. Because clearly now they know that I'm going to try to disagree with them because I want to make the sale. The issue here is money. So I'm going to continue with my questioning. I'm not going to bail, as you see.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But watch this.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes time to present my product, here's what I'm going to say. We perhaps are not the least expensive game in town, but before I give you the price, I'd like to make sure you understand everything it includes. And now what you do is you include things that you have that the competition does not have, which explains why the pricing is where it is.
And what you have done, Bill, is you have taken a bad-mouthing situation that's been given to you, you've converted it into an objection that then needs to be responded to.
Yes, it's neutralized, and now what happens is the skillful salesperson will know how to do that. Now, the superior performer in sales will make 10, 100, 1,000 times more than the average performer. People have to work at their craft to know what to do. So I said, okay, they're bad-mouthing me. I'm not going to deal with it. They were specifically talking about price. Never quote price to an unsold buyer. I will say, okay, I understand. Later on in the sales process, I know they're still concerned about price. So I want to make sure you understand everything that the price includes. Now what I do is I give him everything that he's after, and now the competition can't compare to me. I will outsell them. I will not badmouth them back.
And again, if I could say this again, because I think it's an incredible insight, what you have done is instead of getting defensive, instead of maybe reverse bad-mouthing
or
offensively, what you're doing is you're just converting it into a standard objection, which in this case, the example I was using was price. And you're converting it to the standard price objection, and then you know how to deal with that if you're any good as a salesperson, and that forces you out of being in a defensive mode. But getting back, I interrupted you. You were talking about trapping from the standpoint of being bad-mouthed behind the scenes, and that's another animal altogether. And I don't think I let you finish that.
Yeah, the second part is when they clearly badmouth. They say something to you directly. You know, so and so, your competitor says you're, you know, and you gave that example with the price.
Right.
And that's the strategy. We flipped over to that strategy.
Right. Okay.
So one is going to be covert, one is going to be rather overt. And this anticipatory kind of thing is always critical. The more I know before I get in there, the better off I'm going to be.
But and I don't want to leave this because I think this happens all the time to all of us. Again, if you find out that you are covertly being badmouthed and being set up for a trap, then what is the dynamic that changes when you come in to make the sale if you know that you've been badmouthed in advance?
Very good question. Here's what happens in the real world. If you know that's happening, your antennae are up.
Right.
And you now are reading body language, you're reading the people in the room if it's a group situation, and you are looking for when these subtle statements are made. You know that they would never come up with that information on their own. And there will be somebody in that room, or that person will bring that up. Now you've identified the direct pipeline between the competitor's bad-mouthing and to whom they do the bad-mouthing. And now what you do is you need to work with that person to either win them personally, to win them in terms of the better questioning, selling more value, and what a great question. After selling for over 30 years, I can remember being in boardrooms, and I knew who the advocates were, and I knew who I was going to have trouble with. Now, here's one of the things that I would do. I would try to find out, tell me about their personality, tell me how long they've been there, tell them what their relationship is with the competitor, tell me why you think they want to have the competitor. Now, that doesn't mean you teach to them or work to them, but you need to know. It's more strategy than tactics, and as I often say, salespeople are far more tactical than they are strategic.
In other words, being forewarned is forearmed.
You got it.
Okay.